Joining us today is Josh Kail, a seasoned strategic communications and PR professional with nearly 2 decades of experience helping technology companies refine their messaging and expand market awareness. With a deep passion for media strategy, team development, and emerging technologies, Josh has worked across industries to shape narratives and drive impactful communication strategies. Josh, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Looking forward to having people get to know a little bit more about you. What moment in your career has taught you the most?
I think there were several pivotal moments. I like to look at my career, or my early career in particular, as a series of sink or swim moments. So
Okay.
the very first would be the first agency I worked at. It was a boutique agency in New York. There were four of us. I was entry level. So building media lists, editing press releases, that type of stuff. The co-founder of the agency decided she was going to step away a few months into my working there. And I went from that AC role to running 8 accounts by myself. So it was a month of just migraine headaches going home every day. I had support within the agency, but it was, my clients. I had to suddenly learn how to do client calls, how to do reporting, how to do campaign strategy, all that stuff. New business, like it was a major jump up. So it was one of those things where I didn't drown, thankfully, and it gave me these skills, or the seedlings of skills to really develop. So I like to say I had about 20 years of PR experience, and 16, 17 of those are in that leadership capacity. So that was a huge long-term advancement, even though in a moment it did not feel very, very good.
I can imagine. But it's also adversity that teaches us a lot. So I
Yeah.
think you took the right approach and you learned from it. So that's
Yeah.
great. When your colleagues or team members describe you, what 3 words do you think they might say?
I would say they find me calm, which is something I found to be very important, particularly from management and mentorship,
Mhm.
strategic and inclusive. So strategic, I'm always thinking about short and long-term strategies. What does the minute aspect of a pitch or a press release feed into the larger messaging goals of a client, or the larger expansion goals of the agency, depending on what the task is? And inclusive in the sense of, I like to have every member of my team input and preferably argue with, because I can be very, very stubborn and focused on what I think, but I want outside views at every level to come in and challenge me. And if it makes sense and it beats my brick-headedness, then it's a good addition. And so I've seen strategies exponentially improve in quality and breadth because of entry level, mid-level voices coming up. So I try to encourage those voices as much as possible.
I think that's great. I very much share that mentality that I like to be challenged. I don't want to just have people on my team saying yes. So I thoroughly agree with you. Outside of professional achievements, what passion project or personal interest has taught you the most and make you better at what you do?
Well, I would say if PR is a career of rejection, that's getting used to that. So I do a lot of creative writing on the outside, some of which has been published, a lot of which has been rejected. So I seem to like surrounding myself with a copious amount
With
of
rejection?
rejection emails just to
Okay.
keep my skin thick, right? Because it's a numbers game, right? The more you put out, the better. So that's one. And then to balance things out from that, I do acrylic painting, I do some woodwork, I roast my own coffee. So a lot of external creative things that you can put all that other stuff and all the stress of the career aside, and it allows
Mhm.
your brain to reboot. Same thing with hiking, just like going on these long walks. Cause I found there could be weeks with days in a row where I'm in Southern California, but haven't seen the sunlight in a few days. And there's a noticeable difference when you just go outside and take a walk for a few minutes and get back in. And it's a needed health,
Mhm.
self-care type of activity. So all of those
I
are so.
I think it's something everybody needs to learn to do better. And my wife and I were just talking about it this morning, that getting out and just changing your scenery, changing your venue, having that release to be able to not be surrounded by work
Yeah.
and having that chance to be a little bit more creative or just even different, to be able to breathe is just such an important thing. So I couldn't agree with you more. Can you tell me about a mentor that has meant a lot to you?
Sure. I mean, going back to that first agency I worked with, the founder of the agency is a woman named Wendy Simmons. So when I started working there, right, originally as an AC and then on that elevated capacity pretty soon after, she told me, I'm not going to yell at you for the first 2 months. And then on month 2, you're going to do something. I don't know what it is. I'm going to blow up at you. You need to just stand there and take it. And, and like 2 months on the dot, I don't even remember what happened, an email or something. Boom, just got screamed at and took it as it was. But again, because I was in this really weird position where I was working beyond what my experience would have let me do and have do these things that normally at an AC as a junior AE type level wouldn't have been allowed. She was instrumental in giving me the basic pointers on like, all right, here's how you can improve this press release and here's how you can talk to a client, but also the more important things are like helping me build out time management skills, which in the beginning of my career, horrible at. Because I know you don't know how long things take. You don't know like what needs to be done and all that other stuff. And you always assume they're best, and that PR will beat that mentality out of you pretty quickly. So she was there to help teach me those things. And then the one main instance which has helped me significantly through my career is I got a call from a client. I had scheduled a meeting and they just went off on me over the phone to the point where like she could hear on the phone because he thought it was at a different time and I was wasting his time and all this type of stuff. And I sat there and took it and apologized and hung up. And after I hung up, she's like, never let a client speak to you like that again. First of all, he was wrong in whatever the scheduling issue was. Second, like you need to put a stance there because that was totally inappropriate way to respond to anyone. And so that was another big skill that I needed to learn in terms of how to be polite and, but strong in my positioning and stances when clients need pushback. Not necessarily in the extreme of like I'm angry over a mistake, but if they're pushing in the wrong direction, or if they're, one case, like speaking abusively towards team members, or if they're making unreasonable requests, like being able to quiet down those moments and create stronger relationships.
That's an important skill. Important skill. What book or podcast has influenced you?
Professionally, I create very strong division. So professionally, I stay away from like PR communication podcasts and whatnot, just because I need to get that break. I'm going to extend that into social, particularly LinkedIn. What's been most influential is the networks I've been creating on LinkedIn and the content I've been reading from colleagues and the content I've been writing and the conversations I've had from them. I think it's more organic, it's more conversational, and people let the guards down a little bit and open up. So that's really where I get that professional industry insight and conversations going. And what are the challenges and what are the opportunities and what are the new tech out there and what's all that type of stuff really goes in that path. Because when I listen to a podcast, again, it's more of Conan O'Brien needs a friend type of thing.
I was going to say coffee roasting or...
Yeah. No. Coffee roasting is more of a trial and error, I guess.
Okay.
It's an art and a science.
No, but just getting back to what you're saying, I think it's an interesting take you had on that. Instead of it just being about podcast or book, it was about how am I professionally developing? And if I could put a different word on it, you're creating a community that you're learning from.
Yeah.
Through your social media.
Yeah. Because what I find, like I've been on podcasts and I've listened to podcasts before, so I'm not saying they're valueless, but what happens when I listen... No,
I didn't take it that way.
Yeah. Well, when I listen to it, what happens is I'll get frustrated or angry over a point, but there's no way to like talk it out and get deeper, right? You're being presented with something. And so like where on LinkedIn, if I see a post I disagree with, I try not to be an ass on it, but like I'll challenge that post and I hope people do the same. Every time I put a post up, there's that moment of fear of like, all right, I just canceled myself. Like I'm going to say something that pisses someone off and that's going to be it. So far that shoe hasn't dropped yet, but like the conversation, the back and forth, whether on the feed or like through direct messaging and whatnot, it's PR. It's the interactive aspect of it. It's not just, present and go.
I think it's a valuable thing. If you could spend a day learning from anyone, living or historical, who would that be and why?
I think it would be Groucho Marx. Yeah, because, right, you have his of newbies and what they came out. He is someone who thought on his feet, very quick turnaround and being able to respond to that, but also like the build up behind like a night at the opera and all the other stuff. The amount of preparation and testing and really analyzing every single gag, joke, and whatnot in it, right? It's the science into itself. It's an art into itself. So being able to have that conversation and just like understand that process. I like to think of myself as pretty quick on the mind, but that's another level. So
Yeah,
that,
absolutely.
I feel like that, again, we're not talking directly about PR, directly about communications, but you're talking about someone who's developed skills that directly apply to it, make for a more interesting conversation because you get too many PR people in a room together and you just want to like shoot yourself because put the same stuff over.
Fair, very fair. So wrapping things up, what do you see as the future of your industry?
I think we're always at a crossroads. So it can go one of two directions. It can go on over-reliance or the over-marketization of AI for PR, which is where we're at now, where it's more of having PR as a sales method rather than an actionable, usable tool to actually change anything for it. So we can go in that route where it's more puffery and like tricks and stuff like that in order to try to get clients to come in with half-truth positioning. Or we can go back to the foundation, right? And look at what is PR fundamentally, regardless of whether you're talking media relations, event planning, however you define it. I'm not going to define PR for everyone here and figure out, all right, well, the foundation of it is psychological, right? How does an organization or an individual communicate to individuals that they want to, like that fundamental, focusing back on that and then seeing where the technology comes as it matures to help emphasize and elevate that without it overshadowing it. Because that the biggest challenge for PR, and it's always been the biggest challenge for PR, is our own PR, right? Market understanding of what we do across the board. So that's the future is if we can start coming together as an industry and being more universal in our definitions and more open with what we're offering and what the value of it is for a company. That's where the long-term future is. If we go more towards like, oh, we have AI and it automates our recording processes of results, so it should give the same bad data that manually adding up UVMs gives, right? We're going to be in the same space.
Fascinating take. So we'll put all the contact information for you in the show notes so people
Awesome.
can get your LinkedIn profile, your email address, all that good stuff. But thanks so much for joining us. And hopefully this is helpful. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you, absolutely, they should do so quickly.
Yep. And I always respond, whether it's professionally or you just have questions about the person.
Outstanding. Thanks so much, Josh. It was great to meet you.
Thank you.
MTMG, guidance that empowers.